This is the Storypunks podcast, the show where we talk about all the punks. So steampunk, diesel punk, cyberpunk, and all the other punks. Welcome back to our continuation of the previous interview. This is episode 60, and we are talking about steampunk with Al-Mohamed and Danielle Ackley-McPhail. So you're already caught up on what I've been working on. And the only other thing I'll mention is I have been producing excerpts to go on my site, cindygrig.com. And this is for my fiction. I am trying to move ahead with those things, but like you, I am just hamstringed, or actually I try not to use leg analogies these days because I've had some leg issues. It's funny how much our speech reflects some of the things going on in our bodies or our minds as part of our bodies. And it's been fascinating to kind of monitor my speech. And so that's one thing, just a total aside. And then as far as my writing, I have been trying to move forward, as I said, and it has just been like slogging through mud for years. Do you relate? And then especially with everything going on, I'm just going to be really real for a little bit. Tonight, there is actually a curfew ordered in my city. There's been protests. Nobody can be out on the streets unless it's an emergency, etc. And it's such an important and essential moment for the United States. I am someone who sees these protests and everything else as overdue. There is the National Guard that you can probably hear at some point in this footage. You can hear that overhead above, and I've just never heard a chopper that loud. It's unrest, it's creating disturbance. And again, bring it on. This all needs to happen. But there's other things that have been going on that obviously I would not say needed to happen, like the pandemic, etc. There's so many things, but here we are, and this is the time frame I have to record this, that I am preparing this awesome episode, and it is the conclusion to what we talked about in the last episode. I am so excited to share this because it inspires me, it keeps me buoyant, and I hope it's the same for you. Again, this is my conclusion to the discussion with Al-Mohamed and Danielle Ackley-McPhail. I hope you enjoy and take a lot of positivity from it. Here you go. I mean, I feel like I can picture how you went about this and how you work together. But also, I want to ask each of you individually how you go about writing in general, or just any, creator-based tips or tricks that you've discovered along the way. Day, do you want to start?
Sure. I think Danny already said she's more of a pantser and kind of rolls with it. I'm like, no, I need a little structure.
Yeah. That's crazy that you guys work together. You know what I mean?
So I actually usually like at least like a 10 bullet outline of going, this is the beginning, this is the end, and here are some of the goalposts in between.
Yeah.
And then from there it can kind of squish a little bit. But I usually start there and then maybe put together kind of like a deck of the characters like you would for like film or a television show, saying here's the character, here's the details about them, here's the way they feel, and then roll from there.
Very cool.
And then, yeah, my problem's getting caught up in the research to like connect to pieces. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Yeah. How about this? How about this?
So if you're ever missing, we'll just know you're on a tangent somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Is that about
it? Write it all the way to the end of the rainbow.
Okay, Danielle, how about you? Anything we missed?
Like I said, pantser and nonlinear. So one of the things that I do, which it means I never end up with a first draft. But when I go through, as I'm weaving everything together and I sit down to write, I'll read over what I already read or what I already wrote so that I can, fix it in my mind and also clean things up a little bit. And that gets me into the flow of writing the new content.
And I will say the nice thing about working with a pantser, right, is there's this momentum and this energy to keep things going that stops you from getting bogged down. So everyone thinks about the conflicts that come. I'm like, no. There are some definite positives.
Well, yeah. So maybe when we think of, that age-old question, should you be a pantser? Should you be an outliner? Maybe it's about balancing those two out. I don't know, but that's so cool.
I've gotten to the point where, as the work grows, I'll have to stop in the middle and then write a little outline based on what's already there, so I can see where the gaps are.
Yeah.
So I do outline, just not at the beginning.
Just not in some official. Yeah.
I am the cartographer of my story.
I like that. That's awesome. Okay, well, what else can you tell us about putting Baba Ali and the Clockwork Djinn together? We're focusing on it just because of the theme of this show, but I know you ladies have written many other things. And but as I think about this work in particular, and I know you've gone through different permutations or are continuing to, but do you have any takeaways just from that entire journey that would, resonate with readers or writers?
Well, the thing that I liked about what we did is we researched history and we pulled in actual existing elements to augment our story and to give it depth. There's an actual engineering book from, I don't even remember what century now. I think it's like the 12th century, called The Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices. And we actually incorporated that into the story. And Ali's mentor is Charles Babbage. And, just the thieves actually come from the Persian court. And there's a treasure that is actually disappeared in history that we have made the core of our treasure cave. So there's a framework there that actually follows history.
So cool. Well, now this it shows my ignorance, but are you anchoring it in a different time period? I mean, I picture this story being told way earlier in history, but is it not specified?
The story, it does not specify. But the interesting thing is that the story Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves comes from 1001 Arabian Nights. But it was not in the original manuscript, and it wasn't introduced until Victorian era. So that was kind of a cool little fact.
That is super cool. Day, is there anything else you want to add?
Sure. I think one of the things that really helped move this was one, we show him traveling. We start him in England. We move him through France, through Jerusalem to the Najd. And I think one of the things is that and he has items with him that clearly came from China also, and Japan and the Far East. And one of the things that we talked about was how does magic and mechanicals interrelate in different parts of the world, and what does that mean? Do you have one as being of greater value than another? And I think we hinted at that with regard to England and Charles Babbage and the question of leaving. I think it was leaving milk outside and being denigrated for it, right? And then. And then we talk about the Middle East, where there's definitely more of an emphasis in some ways on magic and not as much on mechanical devices. Just let's also get real. In reality, sand plays merry hell with any kind of technology. And then we went, so things that are of a magical nature were going to have a greater importance, which is why he had to leave to learn more about it. And then when we talked about the puzzle boxes and China, there's this, at least as far as, I don't want to say China because it's not a Chinese puzzle box necessarily, but because I think it was a Japanese box. And we even had it down to what region that came from. But the fact that within the Far East, that magic and mechanicals had actually been blended seamlessly together. And so basically, how does that become a part of culture, and what does that mean in the way the world is built and the way it operates?
Okay, well, keep going, Danielle. Yeah.
The dynamics that we worked into the story, Ollie is actually put down for his interest in the mechanical. His brother actually rips him away from that when he takes control. And we also address, like Dave was saying, how the sand and everything is very detrimental to mechanical beings, and actually worked that into the story when Morgana finds the thieves when they're hiding in the vats of oil.
So cool. Well, I think we can pretty much say that everyone's found their next read. This is so fascinating. And I know everyone's going to be super excited to hear this interview when we publish it. And
I'm going to warn you, Day, I just finished my first read through.
Oh, I feel like a fly on the wall right now, just seeing the magic happen.
I was like, oh no, I'm sure she's gonna be like, I found this gap, and here's some things we could revise to make better. I'm like, no.
Always.
But actually, mostly I just changed a little bit of language. There's one or two things I'm not sure if we fleshed them out properly. Like I couldn't remember mentioning anything as to why Razul has a problem with assault. It plays a part at the end, but I don't remember actually setting it up. So that's something we have to look at. But mostly it was just cleaning up the language, taking out a bunch of wases and stuff like that.
At least it's not about a bunch of that's and a bunch of justs. Which
exactly.
My favorite.
We all have our pet sins. Yeah. Do you think you'll collaborate again?
I'm sure. I know I have ideas in the same universe.
I think that's the problem is we built out the world, and now there's like all these other things to do in it. It's like more work.
Yeah, completely. But my last question is, what has steampunk taught each of you? What do you hope to see from the movement going forward, or anything else as we move into 2020? We'll start with you, Day.
Sure. I think that the toughest thing for me is just in general, different things wax and wane as far as interest. And one of the toughest things is I'm not seeing as much steampunk now as I used to. And I also kind of miss a little bit of the opportunity that folks have to play with history and to really turn things upside down. Let's see steampunk set in other parts of the world. Let's pick up some stories we haven't heard before, and let's maybe also dig into some of the science and make it a lot more fun. I'll even give an example. So we talked about, we have camelids, the mechanical camels that our villains use, the 40 thieves use to carry their treasure. And we talk about the oil and the fuel that's used to spur them. And the thing is, steampunk traditionally tends to use coal. And the thing is, I'm like, coal's not what you found in the Middle East. Everyone was more where oil was. And during that time, in that area, things like that, their streets were paved with asphalt. Right? So you take an alembic and you start filtering down oil. What do you get? Jet fuel. So our camelids run on jet fuel. And so suddenly we have a science that supports the way they operate.
So even some of these things that we think are so foundational, like steam from coal has to, whatever, we can play with.
Right. And I'm like, no.
Steam only has to be generated by water.
But I think I wish it was more daring. So I think that would be my wish. I wish it would live a little more into that punk aesthetic.
Totally. I'm with you. Danielle?
You can make things happen. You just have to figure out how. And that is the absolute joy of steampunk, because you can let your mind loose and you can take a problem and you can transform it and you can overcome it.
Well said. Okay, well, I'm truly excited to point everyone to this book and the many other works these two authors have for us, as mentioned in the bios. And you can also check out their links, as we mentioned. But will you guys just remind anyone where they can find you and any deals you might be running or anything like that?
They can find me everywhere. I'm very easy to find. There's a but one of me. It's all the world could take. I do want to say Baba Ali and eSpec Books, which is what it will be coming out through, is currently running a 99-cent sale on all audiobooks that are backlist. So you can find that on any ebook platform.
Very cool. Thank you. How about you, Day?
Sure. The easiest place to find me is at Al-Mohamed.com, which clearly with the spelling of my name might make it a little harder to find. But hey, we'll provide a link to make it easier. My novella comes out came out July 26th.
Congrats.
I am super excited. And it is the Labyrinth's Archivist. It is not quite steampunk, but it definitely has some science mixed in a fantasy setting. And for those of you who love stories about the Great Library of Alexandria, guess what? There's now a murder that takes place in it. I will send a link actually to the book secret. So you've got the science and the history and the stuff that we actually researched that was behind it. Everything is like a dozen little posts. So the jet fuel's in there.
Okay.
The airship he's on, what it was based on, and photos from the actual airship.
Very cool. And again, thank you for your time. I just loved meeting both of you, but also getting into the nitty-gritty about this amazing concept and this amazing work. And I just wish you the best with everything else you've got going on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank my guests for being here today. We have such an amazing lineup, and I'm so thrilled to share this with you as we go forward into 2020. I hope your projects are going well. I know this can be a tricky time for them. However, sometimes creative projects are hard enough as it is, and then you enter a phase like, the coronavirus, pandemic, and there are 10 other things you have on your mind at any given moment, and it's just weighing you down. But in some ways, it can be really nice to channel that darkness. That's what I've been trying to do. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it has been nice to know that I can write that kind of stuff. I can put it into what I'm creating. Maybe you're a writer, maybe you're someone else creating something else. But, I know you're someone else. You're not me. You're someone else. But yes, it can be really nice to channel that darkness actually and to capture it within your medium. And I think sometimes we forget that even though we are writing dark stuff, we manufacture it. And it's just something I've been thinking of. Sometimes we don't dig into our actual experience when we are reflecting the darkness. We just kind of keep it at arm's length a little bit. So maybe invite it into what you're creating. That's all I'm saying. And maybe you're already aware that your creations can be a buoyant force, and maybe that's going really well for you. And you're like, I'm sort of built for quarantine. And I kind of get that on some days as well. I pretty much go back and forth, I'll be honest. But I do wish the best for you and yours. And on another note, I hope that you will check out International Steampunk Day. So this is actually coming up on June 14th, 2020, online. So you can actually find things that are going on wherever you are in this crazy world. Sometimes it flies right by and we forget, but I hope you'll check it out this year. If you're ever trying to find this show online, you can listen to it on many different podcatchers, or you can go and watch it on YouTube. Our website is storypunks.world.